Do you use FRS radios to stay in touch with your buddies? Well, I've got an interesting new one that's inexpensive and waterproof. We're going to check it out in this video. I've been a user of these FRS radios for years, and I've discovered that they need to be totally waterproof, at least IP67, which means that they will sustain a dunking of 30 minutes in water, because a lot of times these will end up bouncing around in the bottom of my kayak. But the problem is these are all really expensive. I think when I bought these, they were over $100 for two. Well, there's a new model out on the market, and it's inexpensive. It only costs about 60 bucks for two. It's by Retevis, if I pronounce that right, and it is a totally sealed and enclosed unit. The advantage of this one right away is when you look at the charging contacts, they appear to be brass. And when you compare that to what happens to my other radios that only have some kind of steel, look at all the rust on these things. I've got to periodically scrape that off to get these things to charge. Now, this is a very simple radio to operate. Now, granted, for $60, I think that's what the price is, you're not getting as much functionality as this, because the first thing you notice is that there is no display here on this radio. The other thing is this has many more channels. I've got this set on 17 privacy code 1, and I've got this set on channel 4. This only has 16 channels, and I think the instructions said you needed software to set up anything beyond that. And in fact, the directions talked about having software, but a negative is there is no link to where you can get that software. Now, the way this works is as soon as you turn it on, it starts talking to you.
Turn on the radio 4.
So it confirmed it was on, and it said I was on channel 4. And that is a huge advantage of this thing, is that at times, you know, depending on where you're sitting, you could turn this thing off and never hear it go off. The other thing that can happen is you can accidentally press the channel button and now lose contact with your buddies. But on this one,
5, 4,
with the voice activated channel, well, not your voice,
5,
the voice included in here,
4,
you know immediately if the channel's been changed. The volume control is up here on the top, very simple, so you're not going to accidentally press a button here and end up muting it out. It does have a headphone for voice activated, and again, the software says that you can set a lot of this stuff internally, and I'll have to check that out later. So my buddy and I are going to use this today. I like the fact that the antenna looks substantial, should be good for some decent range, and it is IP67, so it should withstand getting wet. And I'll do a test of that. I'll throw it in a bucket of water, leave it there for about 20 minutes, and see if it still works. But I want to see how it works out here before I potentially break it. But initial impressions, other than the fact that you got to have software to make any other adjustments, and I'm not sure what those are until I see the software, this seems to be a pretty solid choice. It's also lighter than these, so if you're putting this on a backpack or something like that, that could be a consideration. I tell you, I really love the fact that it's got these brass hookups, because this has been out a couple times as I've practiced with it, and you can see that there is no corrosion on those at all versus what you see here on my old Cobra radio. Well, let's get out here, let's start using it, let's see how it holds up, and then we'll do a summary. I tell you, there's nothing like doing a review where you can also catch a fish. There's a little black drum. I'll get him off and get him back in the water. We've been using these things for a couple hours right now. Battery power is still good, volume control is nice, and the audio quality is really nice. Both Dick and I agree that the audio coming out of here is better than what I'm getting out of the more expensive versions. So now this is just configured with the out-of-the-box options other than setting the channel, so it's probably not that big a deal that You have to use software to do any other modifications to this. Now it's time for the final test. Is this thing really waterproof at IP67 level capability? I'm going to throw it here in this bucket of water, leave it in there for about 25 minutes. This should be good for 30, but I'm going to give it some plus or minus around that. Now, one thing that just popped out is I'm not sure this is the radio that is actually charged. So I'm going to throw both of them in there because I'm not sure which one still has some charge left. And just to be fair, I'm going to throw one of my Cobras in there too. These are supposed to be good at the same level. So I'll turn them both on.
Turn on the radio. 4.
And dump them in. And I'll start the timer. How about that? I forgot the Cobra floats, and obviously that one does not. Something else to consider. Well, the heck with it. I decided to go the full 30 minutes. Let me pull them out right now and see what's going on. Okay, I don't know which one of these is actually charged, so let's just turn them both on.
Turn on the radio. 4.
Oh, that's working. Yeah, this is the one that didn't have the batteries. But there we go.
5. 4.
And for comparison, the Cobra is still good as well. Now that the waterproof test is done, let's kind of wrap this up. Now, earlier I mentioned that some of the functions were only able to be accessed via software. There is no place on the website where you can download that software. The individual who sent me these radios for evaluation sent me a zip file with the software in there. However, Windows flagged the file as something I shouldn't open. So I've got an old beat up laptop. I put it on there, tried to open it, and it would not open. So that is an issue if you don't like using this with the out-of-the-box functions. So what is the software used for? Well, the software can set the level of squelch, the ability to just yell at this thing and have the voice commands without having to press the push to talk switch. That's how you get the privacy codes and a battery saver. And then the final thing is you can put a busy channel lock on with the software as well if it does everything that the user manual says. Now, once I got into thinking about the privacy codes, one of the questions I had is, would this radio communicate with a normal FRS? And so what I assumed is that this is set with a privacy code of 0. So I set a channel on my regular radio at a privacy code of 0, and they were able to talk to each other. So that's good. So you don't really need to have a million of these things, and your buddies can still have their regular FRS radio. So the bottom line is this becomes a very cost-effective solution for a waterproof battery for kayak fishing. If you're not interested in having software to deal with all those things I just mentioned, you know, maybe they'll put it up on their website at some point, then this thing will work fine out of the box. And like we said earlier, we really liked this voice function that lets you know exactly when you've changed the channel and that you've turned it on or turned it off. So for 60 bucks, I would recommend it. Now, if you guys have experience with this brand of radios, throw it in the comments below. My buddy and I think that they're a good deal for 60 bucks. What do you guys think? Take care.